Hi, folks. Welcome to Crisco's Corner. Hi, folks. Welcome back. And those of you that are new, welcome. Took a few days off from news, politics, and I was watching the U.S. Juniors and the U.S. Senior Chess Championship of the United States on St. Louis Chess Club and Scholastic Center YouTube channel. Those of you chess people out there, they're all archives. You can watch all 9 rounds with commentary. So I took a short break, but I'm back, and here we are. Impeach. Should Joe Biden be impeached? Now, I want to say up front before I show some videos here to help you make up your mind or at least give you some info maybe you didn't have. Impeachment is not expulsion from office. Impeachment is very much like an indictment. And anybody knows you can indict a ham sandwich. Now, this will be very partisan if there is an impeachment vote. And then it will go to the U.S. Senate, where I believe it needs 2/3 in order to impeach. And it was done purposely by the founders, so this wasn't used willy-nilly like the Democrats did to Trump twice. So let's take a look at a couple of videos here, and I'll comment along the way.
That they bribed the Bidens, okay? This was given to the FBI. When Bill Barr finally found out about it, he sent it to his office in Philadelphia. They actually said that this was very credible. The FBI kept this from the IRS individuals for them ever to see it. So not only do they claim that they were bribed, we now find information that 16 out of 17 payments from Romania were provided to the Biden shell companies while he was vice president. When President Biden was running for office, he told the American public that he's never talked about business. He said his family has never received $1 from China, which we now proved is not true. We now have some of the most credible whistleblowers. These 10-year IRS agents who have come forward said that the Biden family has been treated differently, that what Weiss has told us is different than what Garland and Weiss has told the public. And you're sitting here today where now you have found millions of foreign money, just what the 1023 alleges they did to Biden's family. Now we found that it has funneled through shell companies. If you're sitting in our position today, we would know none of this if Republicans had not taken the majority.
Now let's talk about this a little bit. He's right. And he's going to say it's interesting. If he received money from foreign governments as vice president and his family as vice president and president, why was it just China and Romania and the really sketchy countries that are basically our geopolitical enemies? Why wasn't it from France, Germany, England, other friendly countries to the United States? Find that interesting. None from Mexico, none from Canada, none from Western Europe. Isn't that interesting? Very interesting. And, you know, as well, Trump did too. He had business. No, he didn't. In fact, Trump's net worth was reduced by hundreds of millions of dollars. Yes, his son-in-law had a bunch of deals with Saudi Arabia, but they're all above board, real business transactions. What did these people that gave the Biden family money, what did they get in return? It wasn't a business coordination. It was influence. Influence. Donald Trump's son-in-law did not make a deal with Saudi Arabia for influence. Believe me.
Only followed where the information has taken us. But Hannity, this is rising to an inquiry, which provides Congress the strongest power to get the rest of the knowledge and information needed. Because this president has also used something we have not seen since Richard Nixon, used the weaponization of government to benefit his family and deny Congress the ability to have the oversight. Well, it's interesting that the Biden family runs, if they say, a company but never had an office and shell companies to be able to pay through. But if they really ran it for foreign countries, why didn't you get money from France, from Germany, from UK? Why does it have to be from China, Romania, in these countries that have real challenges and had...
Isn't that interesting? And that's a good question. Why from the sketchy countries? And you forgot Ukraine. Why the sketchy countries? Interesting.
I believe we will follow this all the way to the end, and this is going to rise to an impeachment inquiry the way the Constitution tells us to do this, and we have to get the answers to these questions.
That's interesting. Now you're going to see from 2019, you see up there September, Peter Doocy asking then candidate, at the time Vice President Joe Biden, about his emails and his link to Ukraine business people. It's a short clip.
How many times have you ever spoken to your son about his overseas business dealings?
I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings. I have never discussed with my son or my brother or anyone else anything having to do with their businesses, period. And what I will do is the same thing we did in our administration. There will be an absolute wall between personal and private and the government.
Now, we know that's not true. We know that's not true. As vice president, there were tons of shell companies. In fact, I think the quote that leaked out was, it'll take a forensic accountant 10 years. We put them through so many different companies for them to discover it. And by then, I don't think Joe Biden's going to be around. But if he is, he won't be around mentally.
And by your statement that you did not discuss any of your son's overseas business dealings.
Yes, I stand by that. But
Now, if you remember this now, I stand by that statement. If you remember this now, remember this from an Iowa meet and greet when he was running for president, Joe Biden, and an individual got up and asked him about his son being on Burisma Gas and Oil Company with zero experience in gas and oil. Again, if you guys say, well, Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, got a sweetheart deal from the Saudis, Kushner is a real businessman, has been for a long, long time. Hunter is not a businessman. You can see from his actions and some of his personal problems, this man couldn't tie his shoelaces. Let's listen. You know, Joe Biden, tough guy. Let's listen.
On the other hand, that's your son over there. He get a job and work for a gas company that he had no experience with. That's nothing. In order to get access to the president. So you're selling access to the president just like he is. So
you're a damn liar, man. That's not true. And no one has ever said that. No one has ever said that.
I see it on the TV.
You see it on TV. No, I really do. And by the way, that's why I'm not sedentary. I don't like to get up and let him go. Let him go. Look, the reason I'm running is because I've been around a long time and I know more than most people know. And I can get things done.
Now, isn't that interesting? He goes after him personally. Well, I'm not sedentary like you sitting here behind watching TV. I'm up and about because I'm robust. I'm physically and mentally right there. Well, we all know that's not true, even back then. Even back then. So rather than you just call him a G-damn liar, rather than try to defend and talk his way through that and try to do his point of view, he goes after the gentleman personally. It's typical. Now, remember this clip, of those of you who haven't seen it, this is after he was vice president. And you can see the Council on Foreign Relations, he was there. And he talks about the investigation into Burisma, the gas company in Ukraine, from a prosecutor and an investigator in Ukraine. And Ukraine was getting, at the time, this is long before the war there, $1 billion in loans. And those loans were guaranteed by the U.S. So it's an easy loan to make for any lending institution, because even if the government collapses, the U.S. would guarantee the loan, so they wouldn't be out the money. Now, they wanted the investigator and the prosecutor fired because he was looking at things concerning Hunter being on the board and other things, and kickbacks and bribes. You shouldn't say bribes, even though that's what they ended up being. Money that was sent through dummy companies to the Biden family, whether it be his family members, his brother, his son. And if you remember, Joe Biden said, Hunter Biden's the smartest person he knows. Let's listen. And he says this right out in public, knowing the cameras are on, knowing this is being recorded. This is how arrogant. Let's listen.
They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting $1 billion. I said, you're not getting $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a bitch. Got fired.
Chairman.
Now, it's funny. Everybody laughs. Everybody laughs. Now, this is a recent one now with Corinne Jean-Pierre. The only thing that's good about her is she's got a great name. Corinne Jean-Pierre. That's a great name. And you see from the top there how the story changed. He never discussed business with Hunter till he never was in business with his son. See how that changes a little bit? And that's the lawyer-like dodge that happens. I never discussed business with my son, Hunter. It changes to I never was in business with my son. Interesting how that changed.
James Comer today says that the Oversight Committee, has evidence that the president in the past communicated directly with foreign business associates of his son Hunter Biden many times. Curious if the White House and the president still stand behind his comment that he's never been involved and has never even spoken to his son about his business.
So I've been asked this question a million times. The answer is not going to change. The answer.
Yes, the answer did change. It changed from I never discussed business with my son to I was never in business. I never in business with his son.
Remains the same. The president was never in business with his son. I just don't have anything else to add.
So they went from I never discussed business with my son, I was never in business with my son. Seems subtle, but it's not. Now, the reason why I made this video, I'm going to ask ourselves here, go through the comments and try to be as civil as you can. I know there's a lot of people that don't like Joe Biden. There's a lot of people that don't like President Trump either. But the thing of it is, let's look at it from a strategy standpoint. Is it in the Republicans' best interest to impeach Joe Biden? We all know. I mean, anybody with two brain cells touching knows that next year, not sure when, probably earlier in the year, maybe even late at the end of this year, President Biden is going to announce that he's not running. That's what my gut tells me. That's what years of following politics. I'll be 67 this November, so I remember very well the Watergate Nixon days. It was a slow drip to somebody got caught breaking into the Democratic National Headquarters in the Watergate Hotel to every government institution, the FBI, the CIA, and all the rest. Sound familiar? Or involved in rat effing, as they used to call it, to make sure that the Republicans won, which was really dumb because in 72, when Nixon was reelected, he could have died before the election and still won. That's how crappy the Democrats were. Why they did it, I don't know. You remember from the movie All the President's Men, there was one scene where they're sitting around the editorial board, and Ed Bradley was the head of the Washington Post at the time. One of their editorial staff members said, "This is dangerous." He goes, "What do you mean? It doesn't make any sense. Why would they do it? The Democrats are self-destructing. Why would they commit all these crimes and involve government agencies? It makes no sense." But they did it anyway. And it was the only president to ever resign in the history of our country. Joe Biden is not going to resign. He's going to finish out next year. He's going to pull a Woodrow Wilson. If those of you that don't know, Woodrow Wilson had a stroke, and I think it was about a year and a half, maybe even 2 years, his wife was basically the president. Now, I'm not wishing a stroke on Joe Biden. I wish him Godspeed. How does that go? I used to say when I was a city councilman in the early 2000s in upstate New York, when I used to argue with the opposition, I used to say, I wish you well. I just wish you well somewhere else. So Biden is going to finish out his term, God willing, that he's still alive. He just has to be breathing, because we all know he's not really the president. The Democrats will do everything in their power to replace Joe Biden. And number two, and almost as important as number one, they will not let Kamala Harris become president of the United States. When Joe Biden decides he's not going to run for re-election, he's going to say, well, I'm doing it for the benefit of the country. We need some younger blood to lead this nation forward into the blah, 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 blah. Be like the adults in Charlie Brown. Wah, 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 wah. He'll look like he's sacrificing his running again for the good of the nation. What a great guy. And that's the way it will come down. Watch and see. Remember, you heard it here first. So, is it in the Republicans' best interest? Maybe somehow, some way, even though Washington's a big town, in a lot of ways it's a small town, maybe they can let it be known, listen, we know President Biden's going to announce he's not running for re-election. If you can guarantee me that and not make Kamala Harris the President of the United States and let Biden finish out his term through next year, we won't push impeachment. Now, there'll be revolt in the Republican Party, but everybody knows they won't have the votes in the Senate to convict, because we all know that impeachment is basically indictment. It's not a trial. The trial is in the Senate. So maybe after impeachment, maybe they'll give the little push and shove to make Biden announce he's not running for re-election. We'll have to see. I think his arrogance wants him to run again in his mind, but the reality is something different. Even his own people know this. Slowly but surely, the American people are realizing the executive branch head, the President of the United States, is using his power as executive of the country to use the Department of Justice and the FBI and other government agencies to go after his political enemies. That, folks, is third world total. It is. It's that simple. Tell me what you think. I think it's in the Democrats' best interest that Biden walks away. He just finishes out his term if he can. I think it's in the Republicans' best interest to make sure that happens. It looks like Trump's going to be the nominee, barring some unforeseen crazy circumstance. Yeah, he'll probably be convicted next year in one of his trials. I believe one is in March or May of next year it starts. And then they'll appeal it, and they'll have to put up like $10 million bail or some damn thing. You know, and he'll be incarcerated overnight, and blah, blah, blah. They can make a big production out of it. He'll be the Al Capone. You give me a break. This thing's gonna fall apart and blow up in the Democrats' faces. But there's one thing about a powerful, dangerous animal. When I say dangerous animal, I mean the Democrat Party, the Progressive Democrat Party, and all of their media and social media and cable news allies are going to fight it every step of the way. And like any powerful animal, when it's wounded and it's cornered, it will lash out. And I'm hoping the American people can survive it. What do you think? Until next time, God bless, goodbye, and good luck.